and welcome to the Global Leadership Podcast, where leaders of all sorts come to grow and expand their influence in healthy and holistic ways. I'm your host, Whitney Putnam, and listen, I just want to say that the team at the GLN is eagerly preparing for the summit, and whether you have been or you've listened online or you have dreamt of coming, I personally want to invite you to join us. And I wonder if today is the day that you decide to give yourself or your team the gift of world-class leadership training, a 2-day event where you can leave equipped and inspired for all of your leadership needs. And listen, I know that leadership can be really, really hard from personal experience. And that's why we want to come alongside you and provide this experience of the summit. So again, maybe today is the day that you give yourself or your team the gift of the summit. So go and check it out at globalleadership.org/summit. Okay, listen, I thought that my work was stressful until I listened to today's guest. On today's episode, we hear from Carey Lohrenz. She's the first female F-14 Tomcat fighter pilot in the U.S. Navy, where inconsistent execution can generate catastrophic results. She also works with executives to learn how to win under pressure, how to reduce errors, and how to overcome obstacles. Not only that, but she is a best-selling author, and she has helped brands reach their full potential in crises. Her recent book, Span of Control, walks readers through fundamentals, and that's probably my favorite part. She gives extremely practical advice as to how to walk through these areas of high pressure and how to actually succeed. This conversation happens right after Carey walks off of the stage at the Global Leadership Summit in 2024. Carey talks with Jason Jaggard, who's one of our podcast interviewers. Jason's also the founder and CEO of Novus Global. They talk about some of the skills and practices that you can immediately implement to succeed during a time of high pressure. And the truth is, all of us experience times of intense pressure, and we all encounter crises in our own lives. The best part is that Carey gives the practical tools that we can begin implementing like today in our lives. So let's tune in and discover step-by-step ways that we can navigate what's in our span of control.
Hi, Carey. Thanks for being on our show.
Are we starting?
We started. We just started.
Is this thing on?
No, is this thing on? So you closed out the conference, and that's a big deal. Like, the people who plan this thing know what they're doing when they put people in certain slots, and for you to be one of the last voices that they hear is wonderful. And you did such a good job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. How did you feel?
Good. It's so fun to see everybody. This is just such a wonderful event. And I know everybody's going to be catching up even at different times around the world for sure. So we don't want to give away too much. Yeah. But I always approach events like this that have so many capable people on stage and such awesome stories, is that I always just kind of tell myself, if I can get one thing from every person, that's a huge win. Yeah. And then the key is kind of taking action on that, right? Because I could see even so many heads going down in the audience today. Yes. And you're like, okay,
they're all taking notes. They're all,
but you have to do one thing still, right? Yes. You still have to take action. So, but it's just such an honor to be here. So.
Actually, just to play with that a little bit. So what would you recommend? I'm sure people who are listening to this have listened to Talks of the Summit or maybe other podcasts. What do you recommend they do after they listen to this in terms of to make sure that they actually put it into action?
Wow, that's a great question. So personally, what I do when I attend events like this, and I've taken so many notes, is either on a drive home or on the flight home, or when I have a quiet minute, maybe the next day, I sit down and I'm an analog person. I like taking notes by hand. Nice. I know there are people who do things differently, but I just remember it better if I'm taking notes by hand. Yeah. So I go through and I put a little asterisk by everything I feel could be the most impactful for me right now.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I might wait a day, and then I go back and I'll add another asterisk by stuff, and then I start underlining so that if I look back at it in 3, 4, 5 days maybe, it becomes very clear what the pattern is, and then it's really easy for me to layer or think about, these are my challenges. Yeah. Here are, out of the 162 really good little nuggets I wrote down, here are the 4 things I should think about or start taking action on. So then I've kind of captured what, for that moment, I feel is important, and I do it just with my little annotation. But it's always fascinating because I will go back, and whether you write stuff in a journal or people are putting it in a Word doc, go back in 2 weeks, go back in a month, go back in 2 months, right? But keep going back to it, because as you move through different challenges and different environments, there's going to be something else that somebody said.
Yeah.
That you're going to remember that maybe you didn't asterisk because it didn't matter today for you to take action on, but now it does matter.
That's super fun. I like that. So there's 2 things I hear there. One is you actually let it marinate. Like you kind of come back to it. I like the asterisk and underline to kind of see what's sticking out rather than just like, I kind of expected from a fighter pilot for some reason to be like, pew, and to like, just go apply everything. But it sounds like there's like a discernment process where you're waiting to see what's most important.
Well, which brings us to the idea of span of control.
It does.
And it's that
wherever books are sold.
Oh, that's right. Your local bookseller. But this is about, because you can't do everything, right? There's so much important information and great stories and tools and ideas.
Yeah, too much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
So oftentimes what can happen to people, where does that put you? It puts you very quickly from this place of excitement, and I can do anything, to getting home, and you get back into your grind, or you walk back into your kitchen or back into your office, or some other challenge just walk through your door, and you are right back on that overwhelm hamster wheel.
Yes.
So it's about just kind of taking that hot breath and acknowledging, okay, this is all really good.
Yeah.
I can't do it all.
No.
So what's sticking out to me right now?
Yeah, and just because you wrote it down doesn't mean you have to do it.
Right.
Yeah, that's one. So then the second thing I like is the revisiting. And even, so if you're listening to this, I would suggest putting in your calendar 2 weeks from now, a month from now, a reminder or something. You can even say, hey, Siri, put a reminder for, 2 weeks from now. I hope she doesn't activate. She's right next to me.
Hey, Siri.
Oh, stop it. Shh, don't listen to her. All right. So I don't know if that's going to be funny when people listen to this, but hopefully.
It's funny in person.
That's right.
Sorry. Our apologies.
That's right. That way you have like some kind of ping or reminder. Are you just more of a disciplined person? Do you remember to check in on things, or do you use a reminder system?
So again, I'm pretty analog. I don't necessarily put stuff in my phone or even in my calendar, whether it's Outlook or Google. I mean, meetings and stuff like that I do. But when it comes to something like this, I have a system that I use that is very effective for me, and it's worked really well with a lot of the executives I've coached, even athletes. I'm a Post-it note girl.
Oh.
So I take every day, and there might be a few things that I have stuck on my desktop, or I might have just in a folder, but at the beginning of every day, I will write down the top 3 things that are the most important thing that I need to get done or focus on for that day. And then I put it where I can see it. I put it on my laptop, on my desktop, on the back of my phone, somewhere where I'm going to see it 150, 200 times a day.
Yeah.
And what happens by doing that, having that kind of that habit of doing that, is that it's this great guardrail system, almost, if you will, and a reminder of what you have said your priorities are before life comes crashing in on you, before you open your inbox, right? Before you turn the lights on, whatever, in the office, in your church, wherever it may be, that you already have said, this is the most valuable thing I need to focus on to get where I want to go. And then what it gives you permission to do then too is you become much more intentional about the things that you say no to. So when you build these little, you could call it like a micro habit, but just a way of keeping your focus on what matters, what it reminds you of is that when you're being intentional like that, then I just kind of work into my own debrief system, where then at the end of the day, I still have that little Post-it note there. And some days you look at it and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry.
You apologize to the Post-it?
Still, yes. I'm sorry.
You were lonely all day.
I know. We had really good intentions.
Yeah.
But we have a shot tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be our day. But I do try to look back at, and I'll keep that notebook of notes, or when I've gone to events, I'll keep it on the side of my desk, or if I'm traveling a lot, I keep it in my computer bag with me, and I'll just look at it real quick, maybe even while I'm brushing my teeth, and
That's
I'll do
cool.
it.
Oh, wow.
I'll do it a couple of times a week, just as okay, where are we, or that's still good, or it's not going to work right now.
Yeah.
But it's when you get into that rhythm, and again, we talked about debriefing a little bit today, and if you didn't catch the catch the episode yet, before you're listening to the podcast, you will. But when you start debriefing, you learn a way of thinking about analyzing very quickly what did we think was going to happen, what worked, what didn't, and why, and what can we do better next time. So when you just cycle through those few quick questions for almost anything you can do, it keeps you on this constant learning almost.
That's exactly what it is.
Right? A journey of excellence that doesn't become another checklist of things to do or, too much. It's too much. It's just, okay, what did I think was going to happen? What actually happened? What can I do better next time?
Do you to go on the debriefs? I had that for the end of our conversation, but I love that you.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'm really irritated. You couldn't read my mind. Read my mind. We'll talk about it now, which is great because I'm fascinated with debriefs. On our firm, whenever we do trainings, we call them post-ops, and then even in our meetings, we have micro debriefs at the end of every meeting or most meetings.
Okay.
So I'm curious for you. One is when you work with your clients, how do you teach them? How do you coach them around debriefs? And do you daily debrief yourself? Like kind of with this, I call this sticky note, but like, do you, at the end of your day, do you reflect on what worked, what didn't, what did I think was going to happen? And
absolutely, all the time.
Awesome.
And I think it's just kind of a habit that was built from my professional background experience. Because otherwise, all you do is, I think you're setting yourself up to fail because you're just going to get right back on that hamster wheel, and you're going to do the same thing all over again. And for us, we debriefed after every single flight because we worked in really changing environments all the time. So we wanted to figure out, after we've taken the time to do our planning, we've briefed our team, we're going out and we're executing, we're doing our flight. We come back because we want to quickly figure out what worked and what didn't. And the reason we did that was we did not want to leave success to chance. Because if things go really well, and you all come back and you just high five each other and you're like,
you have no
we're
idea.
Awesome. That's great. And you're like, well, did we just get lucky? Or are we actually awesome?
See, and that's a great distinction because I think most people do a debrief after it goes sideways. You do debriefs regardless of whether it goes sideways. And I would imagine it's even more important to do it when you were successful.
Yes, we have to, because you want to be able to replicate that, scale it, and you don't want to leave that success to chance. So whether you got lucky
That's
or
so good.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and we build into our culture, and this is what I try to do with the executives that I work and the clients that I work with, or even I might be working with a team of individual contributors, if you were, that maybe they're not the senior executive team. They're like, well, I'm not the leader. How do I do this?
That's great.
But it's a way to influence up as well, because we're always trying to figure out, and we understand that in the debrief, it is not about who is right. It's about what is right. So you have to leave your ego at the door. And only the people who are involved in the execution get to do, or your event, your rollout, go-to-market strategy, whatever it may be. So you don't get to invite 10 other people who just want to sit there and see who
Silent
messed
quarterback,
up.
that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then, but what we want to be able to do then is take those lessons learned and share them out, the positive lessons learned. So we always we call it the goods and others, not goods and bads. But it's goods and others.
Goods and others, okay.
And there's a really critical reason for that.
Yeah.
Because if you put goods and others up on a whiteboard, others, there's an expectation that we're going to fix it.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
So with others, if I listed others, in our conversation, we still have an expectation that, okay, we know the mistakes we made.
Right.
And we can fix that.
Yeah.
So it keeps your expectation level up
high
without making accountability a 4-letter word, because accountability is so tough, especially when you feel vulnerable, or maybe you're on a team that doesn't have a lot of psychological safety, or maybe you feel like you don't have a lot of support, or you're feeling really burned out, or nobody ever listens to you. The debrief is really a great equalizer because it gives everybody a voice. And as a leader, it's also the fastest way to figure out if your team actually knows what success looks like and what they're supposed to do.
Because they're able to analyze it in the debrief?
Right. Because
That's interesting. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You're running your brief, or you're telling people, you think everybody knows what's happening. And we have all been in the meetings where we're all like, and next thing you know, you're on Slack or on Zoom or you're texting and you're like, who's doing that? Is that Miranda? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
So then you get to the debrief and you're going through those goods and others, and you're going to figure out very, very quickly from a leadership perspective if your team actually knew what they were supposed to do.
That's brilliant.
And that's on you as a leader.
Yeah.
So
How, when you're working with your clients, how do you help the ones that are in charge of the meeting? I can imagine there being like power dynamics. I can imagine people being afraid to speak up or whatever. Is there any tips you have for people who want to lead a good debrief, but they don't want it just to be like, oh, it was great and everything's good? Like, how do you encourage the honest debrief?
Right. Well, so again, this goes back to developing and being really authentic with, if you are saying you are going to have a culture of excellence, or that you support people and your mission is faith-based and value-based, you have to create that space that you can work through what's working and what's not. The only way you can do that really effectively and quickly is leading by example.
Okay.
And that's actually, for some leaders, it can be very difficult. But it is about having the presence and being grounded enough to stand in front of a room and be humble enough and say, okay, we're going to debrief what we just went through. We're going to look at our last week. This is what we thought we were going to do. This is what I see happened. What I think happened. These are the mistakes I made.
Yes.
And I can fix that.
So the leader goes first and pointing
100%.
out their own shortcomings or where they missed it or where they made a mistake or whatever.
Because I promise you, nobody ever has a flawless week.
No.
Nobody ever has a flawless flight.
Yeah.
The Blue Angels, the Red Arrows, anywhere internationally, they're debriefing after every flight. They don't have flawless flights.
No.
So when you are sitting there or standing there and you're the person who is able to walk through stuff, and maybe you go around the table and you say, hey, I know we were supposed to talk to maybe these 3 customers, these clients. I actually just got to these 2. I just got overwhelmed with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I can fix that.
Yeah.
Then people are like, oh. And then maybe somebody says, well, what's stopping you?
Yeah.
And then maybe it's resources. Maybe you don't have a contact, right?
Yeah.
But it opens up these different.
Well, now you're coaching each other.
Yes.
And you're supporting each other.
And you're collaborating.
That's beautiful.
So it gives you this space of vulnerability, but not in a touchy-feely, velvet, soft hands kind of way.
Yes.
It's all for trying to figure out what's working and what's not.
Yes, oriented towards creating results.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So now we can cross off the debrief section.
Okay.
Of our conversation. Although I think there's probably a lot more there, but I do want to keep moving. So I want to go biographical just for a second, because people who are listening to this will already know that you were the first, I'm going to make sure I say all this right, the first female F-14 Tomcat pilot. Did I say all that right?
Yep.
Okay. So then one question, just so that our audience can get to know your journey a little bit. How old were you when you knew you wanted to be a pilot? And how old did you know, or were you when you knew you wanted to be a fighter pilot? And were those the same age?
Oh my word, that's so many questions.
I can add a few more.
Gal to keep track.
Yeah, but I believe in you. Focus. I read your book. It's all about focus.
Thank you.
Not on my side though. I'm just going to keep smattering you with random questions.
Okay. So, this will be like rapid fire then. So I thought I always knew I wanted to fly. My dad was a military pilot and then flew commercially for 36 years. I have a brother who's just a year older than me. And he was a 27-year active duty pilot and still flies. And we grew up playing with all of my dad's flight gear and, what kids do. We're just a year apart. So we're always messing around playing with his gear. But
what kind of gear, by the way, are you playing with?
Oh, so helmets.
Yes, that's what I was hoping you'd say.
Yeah, they used to have silk maps.
What?
So if they ever got wet, they wouldn't fall apart. They didn't put
Oh.
stuff in plastic. Everything was silk. So everything was printed on silk. It was pretty cool.
That's cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we always did that. And
Yeah.
I always knew I just wanted to fly. I was around it. And I come from a family of service though. So I've got uncles and other relatives that have served in every
Branch.
in every branch, every capacity. One side of my family, from my dad's side, were all immigrants, and came over from Hungary and from the Netherlands, or Holland, I guess back then. And so they just came from a place of such deep gratitude and how important it was to give back and serve first.
Yeah.
So I always thought, well, that seems like that could be something I could do. And then, I would talk to my dad about it, and I kind of thought I wanted to fly fighters. They sounded really loud. They were really fast. So that's exciting. And you knew right out of the gate there was a bit of a pecking order because only the best people could fly fighters. So why would you not want to go for that, right?
Well, first of all, I just want to point out that that's not normal. So like most people are like middle of the road type people. As a certain kind of choice to say, if I'm going to do something, why not be the best? Is it? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, okay, that is fair. But I will share with you, I am not a person who, I'm not so competitive that whatever I approach, I have to be the best at it, or I have to be number one. You know, maybe you're a great golfer and you're like, oh, I bet I could be in golf. Well, good for you, probably. Yeah. Or racquetball, or, field hockey, or whatever, cricket. Great. I don't. I'm not good at it. I'll have fun with you, but I'm not looking to win on that. But the way I'm wired is in a way that some days maybe it's 49% to 51%, maybe some days it's 70 to 30. I fear regretting not taking a chance. And that regret, that fear of regret, it's not the fear of missing out. It's the fear of regret of thinking, what if? What if I just tried? And one of the things that I shared today, and my dad would always say to me, even just different things that I would try along the way. And if I was filled with self-doubt, or I didn't believe in myself, or I didn't have enough confidence, or I thought I'm never going to be good at this, or how come I can't do this? How come these people are faster than me? Whatever it may be. Was, hey, just remember when you are hearing a lot of these outside voices as well, oftentimes the people who tell you can't and you won't are the ones most afraid that you will. And when you have this set of competing voices, whether they're external voices who maybe some people are trying to keep you safe, they're not intentionally trying to make you play small. They just don't want to see you get hurt by the failure, or by maybe even ridicule or a lack of self-confidence. But you have to partner all of these different things in, I think, with, there's a piece of you have to have enough faith in big faith, right? And faith in yourself that you'll figure it out. As long as you're putting forth your best effort, as long as you're being kind, as long as you're operating with integrity, you'll figure it out.
Well, I want to park on that just for a second, because I do feel like some people will only take risks if they know it's going to work. And it sounds like what you're saying is you're the kind of person, and I think this is a skill set. I think people can, and your book talks about this in terms of mindset. I think that you can take on the mindset of, I'm going to do this whether it works or not. I know I'll be okay. I will figure something out. I'll figure it out. And that is, go ahead, please.
Yes, no, I definitely. And but an exception there, or it's a yes and. Did what?
What?
Wait.
Keep going. I'm on the edge of my seat.
So what is a yes and in that is that does not mean that you're not going to have a pit in your stomach, that you're not going to feel a little sick, that you're not going to pace around your house and overthink it. And I mean, I come from a background that all we did was risk manage. I am one of the world's best risk managers. That is what we do. Like, that was our profession, was risk management and then taking action. So I am professional level skill. I can catastrophize anything.
Right. That doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't go away. And unfortunately, there are times, because I think through everything, that it might take me a little bit longer to act, or I might miss an opportunity here or there, definitely, because I'm always kind of risk managing it. But the reason I risk manage stuff ahead of time and think it through, why? It's what we all do. It's to try to protect ourselves, right? But when you try to do it in a more methodical way, and you just take yourself and your feelings out of it and go, okay, here's the opportunity, or here's my big scary goal. Here are my resources. Here are the threats or the things that could sidetrack us. How do I match those up? And then look around and go, has anybody else ever done this? Has this been done before? Because chances are whatever you are trying to do has been done before.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is what you're drawing from. I want people to read your book because it is actually very dense. Like, it has great checklists. It has great content. Like, each chapter you could really spend a lot of time on. I can see like multiple talks from each chapter of your book. And you're walking through your 7-point check plan right now. And I do want to, I want to focus on 3, and you're starting to get into some of them right now.
Okay.
So we're right on track. So first of all, sometimes we put quotes in books that we love, but we don't memorize. But you have an Eisenhower quote around plans. I don't know. I can butcher it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, butcher it.
Okay, great. So essentially it's like, hey, like, it's important to plan, but once you get into the war, the plan doesn't matter, but being prepared does.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's about, I make up what that quote's about, and how you set this up is the planning process isn't really about the plan. It's about like developing a shared understanding of the situation, so that when the plan changes, you can make those adjustments together as a unit versus having to come up with a new plan. Is that?
That's right.
Okay.
Spot on. So the reason that you take the time to plan, and too often people skip this because they think, well, everybody knows what we're doing.
Yeah.
Or we're literally having our 46th service of the year. Everybody knows their roles, right?
Yeah.
But somebody forgot to say, oh, but this is actually happening this week. But we kind of think everybody knows it, and then you don't talk about it, and then you mess that piece up, whatever that was.
Yeah.
So the reason you take that time is because you want to look at all the again, we'll call them just threats and resources.
Yeah.
You want to make sure everybody has a shared understanding of what the goal is, of what success looks like, but you raise everybody's situational awareness.
Yes.
And why that matters is because as soon as you take that first step, something's changed.
Everything changes.
Yeah. It might be everything, or it might be something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you have 4 people on your team or you have 1,700 people on your team. Once they've taken that step and you've kind of blessed and released them into the system, because there's this shared understanding of what success looks like and what you're trying to do and what the situation is, as we all see it, we all have a same shared context. You've now empowered everybody to do what they need to do to get to that final place.
Yeah.
So then
That's
what
so
does
good.
it do? Then you don't have to micromanage.
Yeah.
You're not having to send tons of emails trying to cover your tracks on stuff.
Yeah.
Because the way you might get to the end solution might be a little bit different than I do. Of course it would, because we're different people.
Yeah.
But we're going to get to that same point. And we do it because what happens if your communications fail? What happens if everybody's radios die? What happens if your email doesn't work?
Yeah.
Are we all just going to not sit and work for 2 days?
Yeah.
Or are we going to keep kind of doing our work and heading in that direction? So
That's great.
it's a great, part of the challenge when we're working in such uncertain environments is that we assume everybody has the same shared understanding of what the situation is.
Yeah. And we don't. Wildly different, sometimes diametrically opposed views.
Yes.
And the planning process helps you get on the same page.
Correct.
I loved that. And then and you had like 7 checks, but we're short on time, so I want to do 2 of them. And you touched on one, which I just, again, as I was reading, I was like, that is so brilliant, is to ask the question, has anyone else done this before?
I know.
Like, because I do feel like people, okay, I'm going to reinvent the wheel. I love reinventing the wheel.
Who doesn't?
Right. Well, some people
I
don't.
reinvent the best wheels.
That's right. Yeah. Come on. Like,
how much wasted time?
And I want to have ownership over my wheel.
Sure.
And I want it to have my brand.
Sure.
Right. Like all this kind of thing. And the wheel exists.
Yes.
And so can you talk to us a little bit, maybe even how you work with your clients around asking the question, has anyone done this before?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've pretty much lined it all out right there. It's not that complicated, and we make it so complicated.
Yes.
And it's also why we have all heard the adage, and yet we get so busy in our lives, we think maybe I don't have time for that. That is why some of the best leaders are voracious readers.
Yeah.
Because somebody has gone through it.
Yeah.
Somebody has done it before.
Yeah.
And if you can find that book, that paragraph, that situation, or that checklist where you're like, wait a minute, we are navigating so much and I'm so overwhelmed. What if I just try these 7 things? Let's make a copy of it and let's just try it and let's all stick to that and see how it goes.
Yeah.
right? It's because it's the answers to the test.
That's right.
Right. And it's why, sometimes people are like, oh, why'd you write this? And I'm like, I was really fortunate. I learned a lot of pretty interesting stuff, and I get to work with so many different types of organizations and clients. I feel like it would be a disservice if I didn't share some of the stuff that I am so fortunate to be able to see and learn from other people that make your life a little easier in this area so you can make a bigger impact in this area.
That's right.
And if those two things merge together, even better.
Perfect. Well, and what's nice about that in the Air Force is with flying fighter pilot or planes, like that it works. So like your checklist is tried and true.
Right.
It is not like something that somebody made up in a room somewhere.
No.
It's got decades and thousands of case studies, and it's helpful. And people would be remiss not to just take it wholesale and tailor it.
Every single checklist that we go through, and specifically in the Navy, and we've got even short checklists that we have memorized for emergencies, every checklist we have is because not doing one of those things has cost somebody their life.
Yeah, wow.
Every checklist.
Wow.
And we don't saddle ourselves with really burdensome 42-point checklists because, that could be pretty obnoxious. Some things we do, but not for like our day-to-day activity stuff. But the reason we have these checklists, even if you've flown commercially, there's a landing checklist. We have checklists because really smart people forget things.
Yeah, saves lives. Yeah.
But even in your business, in your churches, in your community, we all have so much going on. We forget things.
Yeah.
We're human.
Yeah.
If you have a checklist, it reduces your mental load and your psychological fatigue because you can just go right to that checklist and go, I know if I run through this checklist and we can hit that, and that.
Yeah, we're all good.
We're good.
I love that. And so then my last question before we land the plane, and that's unfortunately pun unintended, but you mentioned the red team. And that's one of my favorite concepts. So can you explain to our audience what a red team is and why it's important when you're doing like prep work for something that's important to you?
Such a great question. Yeah. So the red team is fascinating, not utilized nearly enough. No. Like almost nobody uses it.
That's right.
And there's a reason for that. Most people don't know about it. Yep. And when people write their plans, whether it's a strategic plan, it's a weekly plan, it's a monthly plan, if you're the one writing the plan, you think it's the best plan.
It's the best plan.
Right?
Yeah.
You wrote it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why wouldn't it be great?
I get hired to do strategic planning. Like I think I'm actually an above average strategic planner.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean my plans aren't going to have holes in them. So what we do is we always take the time to, especially on bigger or slightly more complex scenarios or missions or go-to-market strategies. Once we have our plan and we think it's pretty solid, we bring in a red team. So it could be one person, it could be 3, 5 people, somebody who never laid eyes on any of the planning.
Is not emotionally invested in the plan.
Is not emotionally invested in it, and they weren't involved in the planning.
Yeah.
And we just gently ease our plan over and say, I want you to help me poke holes in this.
Tear it apart.
Which is when it's your body of work, you sit there with that lump right in your throat.
It's vulnerable,
because what if they say it's a really bad plan or you missed, now are you incapable? Are you incompetent? Should you even be working here? You terrible human being. So, but you have to trust that, hey, I'm going to, take a look at this and just find all the holes or things that if we miss it or execute in that way could really be a big mistake or cause a problem for us. That's their job.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they give you all the feedback, you do not say, but there's this and there's this and there's this. The only right answer is, Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And if you are asked to be on a red team or somebody says, can you look at my plan? The most effective thing you can say when you see a problem, because there are going to be egos involved, is have you considered?
Oh, that's good.
So if you show me your plan and I see a big gap and I know if you don't do the next thing that I have seen be really effective, I would say, have you considered after this piece doing X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And your response should be either, yes, I have, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Or no, I have not, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say 80% of the time when somebody says, yes, I have, or yes, we have, thank you very much, immediately their head goes down and they're,
That's right.
They're
Yeah.
writing it down
Yeah.
because they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't. But because maybe we're sitting in a big room or
Yeah.
we're on a big Zoom call or there are 10 other people or there are external stakeholders or people with visibility on what we're doing, we need to leave space for people to keep their ego and their sense of self intact.
Yeah.
So that we can still collaborate and work together, right? So
Yeah.
you just want to say, hey, have you considered what would happen if we take this path?
That's great.
And it's either yes, I have, or no, I haven't. We're like, good. And then usually out in the hallway, they're like, oh boy, that was such a good save.
Yeah.
And so thanks for not calling me out in front of
Interesting.
everybody.
Yeah. Like
and you're
builds
like,
trust.
yeah, no, absolutely. It's how would you know?
That's great.
So yeah, have
Okay.
you considered?
So that's only 2 of the 7 checks.
Oh, I'm
And
so sorry.
It's
Yeah.
so rich. No, sorry for what? This is awesome. And the reason why I mentioned that is because I want people to go and get your book, Span of Control, and
Thank
know
you.
that we just touched on 2 of the 7, and that's only one part of the chapter.
I know.
So there's good stuff in there. And
Thank you.
so, Carey, like this has been a blast. Thank you so much. And I like how you mentioned service and your family of service, and thank you for your service, not only in the military, but even just being here, a part of the summit. We are honored that you chose to spend time with us, and you did a fantastic job. Thank you.
Such a privilege. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your trust in me. I'm glad to
We
be
love you.
here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Here's what I'm taking away from this conversation with Carey. It's her intentionality on a debrief with her team after major projects. It's her intentionality to write a sticky note with goals about what she wants to accomplish in her day. It's her intentionality that a leader should go first. There's such wisdom in that. And maybe you're in a season of reactivity, and that is normal. When we lead and influence those around us, we can move into reactivity. I hope this podcast gives you permission to take a deep breath and make sure you are executing clearly and with purpose. And hey, you know where you can go and leave reviews for podcasts that you love? I just want you to know that David and I really enjoy reading your comments about what you're learning from this podcast. So if we haven't, would you go and leave a review and let us know how you're growing and how you're learning? When you do that, it also helps others learn about this podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. And remember, as you experience crisis, and no matter how big or how small, remember what is in your span of control, and you get to lead exactly where you are.